Hello and welcome to the Social Studies Skill Builder activity known as Phase 1. We're going to be talking about map titles. This is where we talk about components that you can find on a map to help us understand a map. So let's jump right in and see what we need. So you want to take a look at your reading notes for Section 3 in the packet that I handed out of the Interactive Student Notebook. Really, it's just the first page. So if you see that on there, you'll see Section 3, Map Titles and Symbols. It should look like the picture here to the right. So we're going to ask some questions about some terms, and I want you to locate these things on your map. And if it helps you to write them down on there, absolutely do so, because these are non-negotiables, things that you need to know as we go. So what component tells us the subject of the map? Take a look, see once if you can figure out what the subject of the map is. You said, well, I think that's the title. That would be this information right here where it says Marshall Gold Discovery State Historic Park. That tells us the subject of our map. Which component, map component, tells us the pieces of information we can learn from this map? So think about that a second. Which component tells us the pieces of information we can learn? If you said the legend, also known as the key, you would be correct. Over here it tells us information, which lines are paved road, which are footpaths, which symbol is a picnic area, a historical monument, a park building. What I want you to do is lay your pencil on the map so it points north. Okay, if you can do that, you're off to a good start. Now point it south, east, and then west. If you're not doing it, you should be. What do we call these four directions? I want you to think about this. If you came up with a term cardinal directions, you are exactly right. If you want to think about this as a little red bird that you see flying in your backyard, that is okay, because we're talking about the cardinal directions of north, south, east, and west. So I want you to lay your pencil on the map so that it points southeast, northeast, southwest, and then northwest. Those would be the directions in between our cardinal directions. What do we call these four directions? Well, they are termed intermediate directions. Those directions are found in between the cardinal directions. What map component indicates direction? That is known as the compass rose, and you see that here with the box on the map. So this tells us which direction we have on the map. Now let's see once. What do we call the lines running north and south, east and west? Well, this is known as the map grid, and you see some examples here. The lines that run north and south and east and west. All of those lines make up what is known as the map grid. How can you use the map grid to give the location of the Gold Discovery Museum on this particular map? We can locate the Gold Discovery Museum by using those grids. If you notice that this falls into the E row, and then it falls into the columns labeled 5 and 6. So if you put those two together, you're going to notice that it brings you right to the Gold Discovery Museum. So we use this grid and the boxes on this grid in order to help us find and describe the location of certain places. So you look at it, it says the Gold Discovery Museum is located between E5 and E6. So how can you tell someone to get to the Gold Discovery Museum from the Sawmill replica without using the map grid? That's a good question. One of the ways that you could do it is if you described it as going left along the footpath, you cross over Main Street and continue on the footpath until you see the museum. Take a look at your map in front of you to see if you can describe how you would go from the Gold Discovery Museum to the Sawmill replica, okay? Now, how can you tell someone to get to the Gold Discovery Museum from the Thomas House without using the map grid? So this time, I'm going to let you figure it out and see once what you think. If you want to pause the movie, now would be a great time. Well, let's see how you did. One of the possible answers would be saying to go left on High Street and turn left onto Back Street. The museum is at the intersection of Back Street and Bridge Street. That's how you would describe to someone if they said, excuse me, can you tell me how to get from the Thomas House to the Gold Discovery Museum? Now, why are these directions different even though the location of the Gold Discovery Museum hasn't changed? So you're going from one place to another, all headed to the Gold Discovery Museum. So why are they different? The location of the Gold Discovery Museum hasn't changed. Well, we're given directions relative to our starting location. This is called relative location. Okay, so because the starting spots were in different areas, the directions are going to be different, although the endpoint is ultimately going to remain the same. Why is the map grid helpful? Well, the map grid gives exact or absolute location. That tells us exactly where the Gold Discovery Museum is on the map. Whereas if you're describing how to get there to somebody, generally we're using relative location to tell them how to get there. So the last thing I want you to do, read section 3, map, titles, and symbols in the student text. Once you've done that, you will get directions when you find a partner and enter phase 1 of our map discovery social studies skills.